All right. So today we are sitting down with Charles Hammond, who is not only my friend, but the CEO of Safe Restraints Incorporated and the CEO of Command Sourcing, which is kind of a partner company that does a lot of body scanner sales, technology space for correctional environments as well. So, but really, you and I got connected quite a while ago because of, I would like to say, the flagship product, which is the WRAP. And it's a safe restraint device to, we'll get into this a lot, but really to focus on safety for officers and offenders who are medical crisis and all that stuff. So thank you for coming up here. And you actually took a flight to come and do this podcast. So I appreciate you doing that. Really great to sit down with you in person and kind of discuss the mission, really. So thank you.
Brother, it is an honor and privilege to be on the Bold Move podcast. And of course, congrats on that. I know you're having a ton of great downloads and listeners and great comments and feedback. It's super inspiring to see. Very, very cool.
It's awesome. And, obviously we have a good network out there of people that are, correctional law enforcement professionals that really want to see this mission that we're pursuing be accomplished. So I'm very grateful for those listeners. So, I think what we should first talk about, just to frame everything before we really get into it, is tell me and the listeners what the WRAP is.
Sure. So, most people are familiar with handcuffs, perhaps even familiar with a straitjacket or familiar with a hobble, which is the binding of the ankles for combative people. Those have been around for decades, right? With very, very little evolution and design. And I think over the years, a lot of those have shown, although very effective, there's some shortcomings. And so what the WRAP does is it expands the control of an individual in a full body approach. So the first piece that goes on is an ankle strap. It's 3 inches wide. It goes on crossed ankles and controls those ankles together to slow the detainee down, therefore immediately increasing safety for the situation. Much more controlling than a typical hobble because it's wider and et cetera, faster, easier to get on. Of course, handcuffs are used already. They're already going to be on the scene, right? And then there's a larger portion. It's called the leg restraint. What that does is it controls the legs together to remove somebody's ability to kick. In a conflict situation, the most difficult thing to control on somebody that creates some of the most issues are the legs. If they have the ability to kick or run or
get a base underneath them, having to build that structure up is difficult to defeat. So.
Well said. So by focusing on getting the legs controlled first, that allows us to bring the situation to a much safer, controlled situation. Then we can then focus on breathing. So that's where the harness comes in. Harness then controls that person or helps support that person rather in an upright position or laying on their side, but not face down. No prolonged pro-strength face down situation. And that allows them to lean back, relax, and have a priority on breathing. So ankle strap first, leg restraint to control the kicking, and then help that person sit up and be able to breathe, relax, and calm down.
Such a needed tool these days and probably always needed. But with a lot of the climate, what's going on, not just with, the optics of using force, but also mental health is skyrocketing, drug addiction skyrocketing, having all of these really volatile situations that law enforcement officers are having a response to. It can just be very, very challenging. And sometimes, unfortunately, because of the chaotic scene and all the other factors, care of the subject kind of falls on the wayside. But with the WRAP, it puts it right back into the spotlight, right back in the focus, because you can't use that tool without focusing on care. It's just built in the program. So one of the things that really shocked me was that the WRAP is actually, though new to many agencies, has been around for 27 years now?
Yeah, it's actually coming up on 30.
Holy smokes.
Started in 96.
How did that come about? Where was the inception of this tool?
Yeah, great question. Very cool. So I'll say back in the day, right? I can't believe we're that old, but back in the day, there were two road personnel for a small department in California. And at that time, the International Association of Chiefs of Police published an article about positional asphyxia and dealing with excited delirium and how do we stop the kicking to be able to give somebody care, that kind of thing. And their chief challenged them with a initiative to help find a product that could solve for that. Well, these two gentlemen happen to have really just a great design brain about them. They were both physically fit weightlifters, and they used a weight belt. And so they went to their weight belt manufacturer that they knew and had it custom made and whatnot. And they asked them to put together initially just a wider weight belt for the legs. And that's kind of how it started kicking off, thinking, okay, if we can control the legs together and get the kicking out of the way, and then we can help control that person upright, let them breathe and get some medical care and whatnot. And of course, that was the start of it all. And then, of course, over the years, it's expanded and more bells and whistles and more safety focus. But very, very cool story. But had it not been for Ron Odell and Craig Zamolo, we wouldn't be here today and having the safety impact on the profession and our communities that we're having. So great guys, brilliant minds.
That's awesome. And anybody could take on an initiative from a supervisor and try to follow through, and we didn't find anything out there because at the time there was really nothing, right? I think NYPD was using like a blanket or something, super effective,
body bag,
yeah. But to be able to say, hey, we hit a roadblock here because there's nothing there, and then taking that step to say we're going to make that right. One of the things that sometimes we say is, hey, if you're looking around the room waiting for somebody to do the thing and nobody's answering up, it's your turn, right? And that's what these guys did. So,
well, I know the chief who gave them that assignment, and super forward-looking, professional, law enforcement professional, and so many times people work on reaction. Right, something really bad happens at their department. Okay, now we got to rush in and solve that problem. They were instead, let's get on the other side of it. Let's find a solution before something really bad happens. And that vision is very, very cool. So they had leadership support, and then they had their own thoughts and ideas and insights, and so it was a really kind of a nice meeting of the right groups of people to make this all happen.
Yeah, we talked about training a lot too, right? Oftentimes, something bad happens, administrations get involved, they have people look into it. And then the biggest thing that's missing is, hey, we didn't train on this thing, right? How were you trained to do the thing that you did? And if we don't have an answer, then they figure that out. But that forward thinking of, hey, it would be a lot better to get in front of this and have an answer for our officers to go and follow through. And the key to taking that approach is the people don't have to get hurt to light that fire. You know what I mean? We eliminate that entire thing. And really, I think that's some of what the community is expecting of us, is to have that forethought and the foresight of creating answers for our people. So, so you got involved in the company in what, 2015, 16? 2012. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And then, you started taking on a lot of the business stuff and really shopping, the current customers and seeing what they were thinking and some of their feedback. What did you get in some of those earlier days?
Yeah. So, we're super blessed in today's environment because we have, video call capabilities, right? Zoom or Teams or whatever. And, in the mid 90s, early 2000s, there just wasn't a lot of great technology for that kind of support. And, at that time, a very young company, it was difficult to travel to give training classes. And so really the boys, I call them the boys, the boys had to go face to face with departments to train them, to get them, up to speed. And as it grew in the Bay Area is where the rep started, as it grew, those who were able to get great training and have that training support did very well and liked it. And as it grew, maybe somebody laterals from Department A to Department B across the country. Well, we would not have the same training ability just from a technological limitation and limitation of the ability to travel and train.
Right.
And so we relied on the experience of the lateral to the new department. So the feedback that I would get was either two things. Hey, we love the wrap, use it every day. You mean not everybody has this? That was one response. The other response was, well, we don't have any certified trainers, so we don't know how to use it, and their same apprehension, which is totally normal, right?
Yeah.
If I don't know how to use a piece of gear, I probably shouldn't use it.
I'm not taking a war with it. Yeah,
that's right. So that was one of my key initiatives when I was fortunate enough to become the principal owner of Safe Restraints, was to make training free and always free. Incorporate technology to be able to do a Zoom class from our office to Miami, Florida, or Alaska or Hawaii, or a place that you couldn't travel to without great expense. And that really has put a huge impact on our business, because it allows us to do the right thing in terms of preparing people to use the equipment properly, give them the support so they get the most out of the equipment. And then that obviously then turns into more growth, because the more people who see the rep, the more people get trained on it, the more proficient they are, the more success they have. And then good words travel fast.
Yeah.
And so that's been a huge component of our success both today, and I believe going forward, is that free training, ongoing training, refresh training, always provided at no cost, because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I've gone into situations in my past where I'm like, we got this new piece of gear and I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to figure it out, I guess. Like, that's a recipe for disaster, right?
Sure.
And so being able to provide that training, and you say free, but it's true. Like, people don't realize the training that's provided by the wrap system when you purchase a system, and even before that, because we don't want to provide any risk or obligation, right? We want them to see the value in it. It's absolutely provided at no cost, because obviously we have a vested interest in having the wrap being used correctly. Like, we don't want that.
Right.
But also it's just another way to serve our officers, and just such a great gift.
Yeah. I'll say there's not many companies who really invest in this niche, right?
Yeah.
It's highly complicated. It's highly litigious. There's lives on the line. Anything that goes bad looks really bad, right? It's difficult. And so we are really proud and in our investment into this industry, investment into law enforcement, correction, hospital professionals, as well as communities to keep people safe. And we don't take that lightly. That training component really sets people up to not only use the gear and obviously purchase and have us grow the business, but use it correctly.
Yeah.
And that just means right now critical to keeping law enforcement corrections officers on the job, because it's hard to hire people right now. A lot of people are going, I really want to encourage my kid to be a cop right now.
Yeah.
Right.
You ask any cop out there, hey, would you ever want your kids to do this job? The answer is 100% no way.
Right. So we're proud of the fact being able to keep those folks in better physical condition to be able to stay on the job. And then equally important is keeping those community people safer, right? Anytime you have a combative situation, it never looks good.
No.
And I think we all, without mentioning them directly, I think we all can think back over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years and think of a prolonged face down restraint death, or a restraint death that didn't look good. It went sideways, right? And so we're very proud of the training to help use that equipment properly, so that we keep law enforcement, correction, hospital professionals safer, as well as the community. And with 50 to 100,000 applications per year, pretty proud of the safety track record that we have.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
One of the things that we say, and I will mention in a bit why I keep referring to it as we, but we don't want a bad day to be the last day, right? And that's true on the person that's in crisis, right? Because mental health is a thing, and sometimes you can be taking your meds exactly as prescribed, and now today it doesn't mix well with your body chemistry and things go haywire,
Sure.
right? Or you're got addiction issues and you got a hold of some bad stuff, and now it's a whole different scenario, right? But on the law enforcement side too, we're asking our law enforcement professionals to do incredibly dangerous tasks with very volatile people under the purview of communities that don't necessarily understand those situations,
Right.
under a highly scrutinized scope. And we're asking them to perform at a exemplary, level. I was talking with a buddy of mine, and this concept of, we always train people to competence, but they're expected to work at excellence,
Right.
But going back to that phrase, we don't want our officers to get all of a sudden overwhelmed with a highly dangerous, highly stressful situation, make a bad call, and now either they're injured and they're out of the game, or because of the optics, they're out of a job, right? We don't want that to be their last day. And so what the RAP, in my opinion, provides is a path for officers to follow that leads to a successful outcome. I mean, that's really it.
Very well said. We always have a little smile when we have this conversation with a current user. We go through training and they say, "Hey, thanks for the refresh training. We learn new things." He said, "But I tell you what, this is so straightforward. It's not I shouldn't say easy, because there's nothing easy about a fight, but it's so straightforward. It's very simple. There's a path to follow."
Yeah.
And by having an A to B to C path to follow, it takes the ad-libbing out of a situation where, if you're out on the road and you're going hands-on with somebody and that fight extends, you get fatigued, your decision-making becomes compromised, right? Just like any of us in any stressful situation, it's natural to hesitate or to ad-lib or to have to increase their level of force. But with the RAP, it's on the scene. As long as it's on the scene and involved, the fight is proven to be shorter. So we can get to care, we can get to breathing, we can get to that de-escalation faster, and it takes that improvisation out of the equation. And we really are helping people make better decisions, better tactical actions, better execution with a more predictable outcome.
Yeah.
And that, again, goes back to the training piece and how important that is. That's why we give the training for free.
Yeah.
That's how important we believe in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're working in the business, you're developing new tools, and we'll talk about some of those new tools. But in 2020, some stuff happened in Minneapolis that made the RAP very, very popular.
Yeah.
And that's how I think I officially got on the team. Is you miraculously, you and some of our other team members were doing our best to hold down the fort while we had an influx of new customers. And we found you found yourself in a position where it was struggling to keep up with training people, right? And because of that, you reached out to me, and it was the right time for me to become the director of training for Safe Restraints. And that's why I keep saying we, is because I am very much involved in the team. I love our people that we're working with and working for. And it's been such a fun ride. So thank you for letting me come aboard and work with you. It's a great honor to be doing that. But one of the things that we were able to do with this is really highly address some of the more prevalent laws that are coming into effect around the country. I'm based in Washington. You're in California. You have AB 490. Is that right?
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So AB 490 is it started out with the carotid restraint. So they limit or eliminated the use of the carotid restraint. And then after Minneapolis in 2020, it expanded to positional control. You can't control somebody in a manner or a way that minimizes their breathing over an extended period of time. And I may not have said that exactly correct, but that's the spirit of the law. And so California, we have the most state users, or over 400 users in California.
I was born there, so
yeah, and it was born there. Yeah, I mean, these are 25-year users, and the what happened in Minneapolis, obviously not great, right? Not good. And the use of the RAP in California, a lot of people had seen it, but they might still rely on some of the old school stuff, right? Why do I need to go through that process? Well, once that occurred, it ignited okay, now
we get it.
Yeah, correct. We make a step forward and improve our equipment that we provide to our officers, because if we want them to produce an outcome that is more predictably positive and more predictably safe, a higher propensity of people coming out uninjured and be able to de-escalate, provide care. If we want all that, then we got to equip them with the right tool besides just handcuffs and a rip hobble. And so everybody that calls us goes through the same process. They get a test and evaluation unit. They get full instructor training, and they get a full access to all of our users so they can call peers, see it firsthand for themselves. And it always turns out the same.
Yeah.
They fall in love with it and put it into service and wonder, how the heck did we do this without this before? Right. Yeah. So, I'll mention, you talked about you are our director of training. I'd tell you, we're super lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And your character and reputation in Washington, and of course now nationwide with all what you're doing with Arc Tactical, those are the kinds of people that we're building our business with. And if we didn't have you and John and Todd and Patrick and others, right, we wouldn't be who we are, because it's still a relationship, right? Just like we're out on the road and we have to have a conversation with somebody about a difficult topic, right? You have to have some verbal judo there, and you have to be a talented, multifaceted human, right? And that's who we have as instructors. People who care about the industry, people who care about personnel, people who care about the community, care beyond just getting a fight stopped. Anybody can stop the fight. You just go in heavy-handed and, but it's more than just stop the fight. It's stop the fight and then provide care and de-escalate and prioritize breathing. And we have such a great nucleus of trainers who believe in that, led by yourself. We're very, very proud of what we're doing. So thank you for being on our team.
Absolutely. And it's been such a cool ride, because initially when I joined the team, I was a huge fan of the wrap, obviously, yep. Right? Because it works. It saved my butt several times in the field. But I've never worked in the private sector like this before, right? And there was a little bit of hesitancy there. But because it's such a tool that is so effective, and I know and I believe wholeheartedly that it helps our people that are, wearing the badge, doing the hard work, boots on the ground, but it also helps our community. Again, don't let a bad day be the last day.
Right.
When I started, what we found is basically it was another access point for more and more people to learn about the tool. So when I got on, we just started expanding even more. So we did bring John on, who's a huge name in and of itself in the Arizona area, and Todd, who's, Wisconsin, a huge name, legend in those towns. Right. And we're just growing and growing and growing. And I think that is a really smart move, because we need to have people that know the gear, who've used the gear and can speak on it efficiently, but also with some intelligence behind it. And that's what we have on our team. We're not just picking, this guy used to sell Oric vacuums from door to door.
Right.
Now we have actual, 20, 30, 35 year, in John, guys on the team that have been in it. They know what a bad day looks like, and they can manage that and help coach our agencies through those things.
Yeah. When I took over, and of course had great leadership and mentorship from the old boys, right? Mm-hmm. From the boys. One of the things that I knew was critically important in this arena, we're dealing with some life and death situations, right? We're dealing with communities who can be shaken and changed for decades if something goes sideways, right? I mean, Minneapolis is unfortunately great example. That town's going to be changed for
forever.
Yeah. And so we don't take that lightly. And if I went out and hired some professional salespeople, I would not get the same level of, it'd be hard to get the same level of understanding of and appreciation for law enforcement's role, corrections role, and then the community's impact, right? And so I handpicked Patrick, you, Todd, John, among others, because I knew what you were all about. And I knew that you were going to put the departments first, the community first, the proper application, and that's really the calling, right? We could do a lot of things and sell a lot of stuff to, and be in a much easier niche than this.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if how many other companies are diving into the, combative subject restraint, world, right? So we're leaning into it with a lot of courage and a lot of intentionality for making a difference in America and making a difference in the planet. And without our team, you, Patrick, John, Todd, and then of course our support team behind it.
Just going to that, yeah.
We couldn't be doing what we're doing, because if the wrap doesn't work because it's not trained right, everybody loses, and we absolutely cannot have that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to recognize not just the trainers, but just the wealth of knowledge that comes with it. So we were talking about our support team. And one of the people that is obviously near and dear to me is my wife, Reese, who does our training coordinating, but makes a ton of phone calls and reaches out to agencies, because though we provide free training and we provide free refresher training, right? One of the things that's important to agencies, because they're literally boots on the ground. I just responded to this really hard issue, and now I had to go back, and they're not going to remember that their training is due, right? Like they're having to track that. So we actually take it upon ourselves in a lot of ways to reach out to agencies, make sure their wrap is performing well, and offer training at that point. And when we do that, we try to do it on an annual basis. You can imagine with all the customers that we have out there, that's almost impossible to do. So Reese is great at doing that. We also have our call team as well as Christina and Tiffany doing those things, and just making a relationship-based company, which was super appealing to me, because everybody has that sweaty palm shake sales guy type situation.
Yep.
Don't like that. Don't like that in the private sector. But but because of the company that Safe Restraints is, we are investing in those relationships. We want to make sure that we are leading from the front and making connections with our customers. And it's been really successful. People love that because, again, they have a lot of different things that they're working on, and they might have had a wrap out of service because a seam popped because of some gnarly event, and we repair that, right? That's part of our repair support, but it'll never get repaired if we're not going out there and helping people. So just a great comprehensive team that we have working together, and it's just a lot of fun, man.
Well, I gotta echo your set. Reese is tremendous. Yeah. Our call team led by her, she is passionate and extremely effective at making sure that the investment that we've made in that group of people, because these are all salary people, these are all folks who are, earning livings and paying bills and all that. It's a big, commitment to us, and obviously us to them, and to have Reese kind of guide that process to make sure that the departments do get the call to say, hey, it's time to get training.
Yeah.
Or, hey, how's the wrap working? Do you have any repair support? Right. That's all provided for free, but obviously not free for the company. But we do that because it's the right thing. And again, super fortunate to have the quality of people led by Reese, who can lead that charge so that the training team can do what they do, and the support team keeps people in touch. There's an old mentor of mine told me, you need to know your business and own your business. And when I made the decision to step into this niche, this career path or this industry, this is not something you can, dive in lightly and just see how it goes, right? You have to make a commitment.
This is not passive income.
This is not, correct. This is not a cool hobby. Let's see how this goes, right? And so I have law enforcement all throughout my family, so there's a big affinity for those who do the job, and it feels great to give back, and only possible because of the talented, caring trainers and the talented, caring support staff that helps this whole thing work. Otherwise, you throw a product out there, somebody doesn't know how to use it because they're not trained, and we haven't called them, right? And bad things happen, and that obviously is unacceptable. So enough sunshine on us.
Yeah.
Great.
We're pretty great.
Team. We're pretty great. Yeah. All you got to do is look at the safety track record of the wrap and the number of users and the number of applications every year. And it's a testament to the job that you all do. And then of course the professionals who are actually using it. Right. We're excited about the impact we're making on the niche or on the industry for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's needed too, because kind of circling back, we talked about the California bill AB 490, but also here in Washington in succession, some things have happened. Right. And I think it was probably 2021. I'm probably butchering that. And I'll get, tomatoes thrown at me later, but our Attorney General put out a essentially blanket use of force policy, which is basically designed for agencies to adopt. And one of the things that came out of that use of force policy was that as soon as somebody is handcuffed, they need to be turned into a recovery position. And though important, right, for breathing, having worked in the business for as long as I have, I know as soon as those bracelets go on, the fight's not done. Like we're not done scrambling.
Right.
So what ends up happening in those situations, and a lot of those situations, is because the person has access to move their feet, they will try to kick the officer, and in response, the officer will use some type of technique to overcome that, and it's just drawing everything out. Right. And then I want to say earlier this year in 2024. We had a hog tie law is what is deemed, but essentially the idea was, hey, we are no longer, and I'll be honest, I was kind of shocked that we had to do this, but we're no longer allowed to hog tie people. And one of the things we were able to do was work with some local agencies around here that were helping frame the legislation on ensuring that the wrap was not a part of that ban, because I think the language that came out of it was that bound hands can't be attached to bound ankles, which is not what the wrap does.
Right.
But anything new comes with skepticism, and there's a lot of new agencies here in Washington. So everybody's like, we love the wrap. We can't lose this. We have agencies that have one in every car here,
Yes.
And so working with those agencies to show how much of a positive it is, has been very valuable on the industry here locally. But I think that concern of respiratory negative effects is industry-wide across the country, and in other countries as well. I know we're expanding in many ways, but what effect do you think the wrap has? And for those of you that can't see it, we'll probably put some links in the show notes, but what effect does the wrap have on that breathing positive position? Like what does it do? And I guess maybe what did we used to do before that?
Right. Well, what we used to do, and I say we, I mean the industry, it was a hands-on, which is why there was such an investment in defensive tactics, and why we need exceptional trainers like yourself to teach those arrest and control, takedown and control, those kinds of things, because all you had is handcuffs, and then came the hobble, and then the hobble was found to not be super effective. The person could shimmy their feet. So what ended up happening is they put a hook at the end of the hobble. And what that then evolved to, is the wrapping around and then the connecting to the handcuffs. So the feet are then connected to the hands, and there's the hog tie.
It very quickly looked like we were trying to secure a load in the back of a pickup truck versus.
Right. So the hard part, again, back to anybody can stop the fight. Hog tie is not a pleasant experience, right? There's a lot of in custody deaths associated with the hog tie. And so it's been outlawed in a lot of places, and now outlawed in the state of Washington. And so the intentionality of those who were working with the anti-hog tie legislation in Washington wanted to make sure that the wrap wasn't included in that, because it's not even close to being what. But if you'd ever seen the wrap, anything new or the dirty word of change,
Yeah.
right, is always met with, hey, wait a minute, right? And so when we shared, hey, we have 100,000 applications estimated per year, and over the last 30 years, and here's the safety track record and so forth and so on, and here's how it works, which is control the legs so that we can then focus on breathing and de-escalation and care. And that's what's led to 100 plus users in the state of Washington, because you can so quickly go from a full knockdown drag out where the fight, back to going what we used to do, fight them down to get them cuffed, to then only have to fight them back up, fight them to the car. Now you got to get somebody in the back of the car who doesn't want to go. Officers are getting busted up on the door jamb and whatever, and then you throw the guy in the back or the person in the back, shut the door. Now they're kicking the heck out of your car. So then you open the door, pull them back out, and with the wrap, it's a one-touch tool. They're in it. It's over. Slide them in. They're under control. They're upright. They're breathing. They can get medical care. And they wanted to make sure that they protected that solution amongst that legislation, because the safety track record is so significant. Yeah. And of course, we're super proud of that. And the feedback from, emails from customers, describing, hey, I had a, emotionally disturbed person in crisis, right? They're not necessarily wanting to fight me, right? They're not necessarily wanting to hurt others, but they need to be helped. They need help right now.
But they are hurting others.
Yes, correct. Meaning they aren't necessarily, it's not like an active shooter. It's not right, but this person needs some critical care. And when they go up and try to help them, they don't want help, right? Because they're in a really difficult spot. And so how much force do you have to use to get the person under control so you can help them, right? So you're taking a couple steps back in the care, before you bring safety to the situation. So the wrap allows you to get that person under control with minimal damage, because it's a shorter fight, right? Shorter fights, less damage. And then be able to get them upright and breathing, and then get the medical care. You can do all kinds of medical checks and provide medical care, whether it's IV or X-ray or any other life-saving type care while they're in it, without them being able to fight. So they can't hurt themselves, can't hurt you, can't hurt EMS professionals or hospital. And by the way, EMS isn't going to jump in and give this guy care when in the middle of the fight, right? So how do we get to safety while the fight's going on, right? Well, you can't. So in the old days, force just shot up to get control over the person. Then it ended up the way it ended up. And I guess now we can get him care. Well, now it's very different with the wrap. Wrap steps in, gets the situation under control, prioritizes breathing, bring in EMS, and it's a much higher predictability of safety outcome for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of those situations is pretty clear, right? If you are not in your right mind and you are not able to be reasoned with, trying to convince you to go and seek care is not an effective approach. It's just not. It does not work. No. I've tried it 1,000 times. But if they're fighting and they're actively being aggressive and trying to, use physical force, the only option at that point is to make that scene safe. We can't give care until that scene is safe. It's impossible. That it doesn't work, right? I'm not putting a Band-Aid on somebody if they're trying to kick me in the head, right? So the brilliance and the beauty of the wrap is that it does take all of that physical force that somebody would be using against officers or other community members, EMTs, nurses, all that stuff, all that violence. Now they're just having to use that against nylon, right?
Right.
And they can't really, there's not much that they can do, but what it does do is it allows a barrier for them to have to deal with so that we can get them care. And if they're in mental crisis and they're not able to be reasoned with, well, then we can get them the care that they need medically, right? If they are just cranky and a little grumpy, well, now somebody becomes a little bit more reasonable when they're in the wrap. And now we can start talking about options and explaining and working into that de-escalation piece. So to me, it's a win-win all across the board. not to mention how effective it is, because it does work.
Right.
So.
One of the routine feedbacks that we hear is once somebody gets in the wrap, they more likely calm down.
Yeah.
Because it's not a pain tool. It's not an agitation tool. Like the hog tie, there's no calming down, because it's uncomfortable.
It's an aggravator.
It's an aggravator. It escalates at least how that individual is feeling, or processing the situation. Not fun. Well, the wrap is not a pain tool. It's just a restriction. And then the design of the harness allows them to lean back, relax, and breathe. So they really can't move. They can't hurt themselves. They can't hurt others, but they can breathe fine. And now EMS can step in and give them care. So faster control to then get to safety and de-escalation. So we like to say from chaos and uncertainty to safety and de-escalation. And that formula is why we're still here 30 years later, and having the people trust us that they do, right? There's some, as you said before, there's some large users in the state of Washington and across the country who just so proud to serve them, and the great feedback. And of course, then they're the best proponents for us in the growth of our business, because it works.
Yeah.
Not just works for law enforcement or for corrections, but it works for the community also.
Yeah.
That feels good.
If it was having a legit negative impact on the community, we'd be done for.
We would have been done 29 and a half years ago. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. All right. So when you first took on the leadership of the company, one of the things that I think probably at that time, the only product that you had was the wrap, right? It's our flagship product. It's the one that the whole company was built around.
Right.
But since then, based on user feedback, and I mean, because that's what law enforcement is like, hey, what's up today? Well, we have this cluster that we have to figure our way out through, right?
Right.
And based on those problems that have come up, we've kind of expanded the line of products that we have there.
Right.
And I think the first, maybe I'm wrong, what came first, the transport harness or the cart?
Yeah. So I think I can't super distinguish what came first, but ultimately, because of leaning into training and hiring phenomenal trainers and having a great call team, it shows the department that we're serious, and it shows the department that we are their partner.
Yeah.
Right? And when you then give training and refresh training, and then you start to get them reaching out to you for, hey, we're having specific issues. What do you have? Or what can you help us with? Or can I use the wrap for this, wrap for that? And so one problem traditionally are waist chains, belly chains, leg iron shackles. Well, if you get somebody who's familiar with them, they can be defeated, right?
Yeah.
And if you know, they can be defeated. And so one of the first things we came up was the transport harness, which is front cuffing, because they're going to be going from one facility to the other. So we want hands in front, but then also, I have some exposure for flipping elbows. And so we have soft restraints that just control the elbows to the body. And then the harness then works in conjunction with leg irons. So now you have somebody who can be transported comfortably, but then much more highly controlled. And that has been a very, very popular tool because it solves a waist chain problem that is not great from a performance track record, can be defeated, don't always get put on right. And so we would not have come up with that unless somebody had called and said, hey, listen, we had a guy get away from us and did it, right? And so we battle labbed it with the department, went back and forth on some prototypes, and they go, this is it. And now that's turned into some really great things. We work with a number of large agencies, transport companies who no longer use waist chains, just use the transport harness. And that's been a great product for sure. It just increases safety, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a facility, it's that detainee and all the jail staff. But when you're on a transport and it's maybe you and one other, and you got
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together, right? And you're away from home base, and it's a lot of danger when you leave home base. And so that's great from a story standpoint of we are here for the relationship with the department for the benefit of the community and the troubleshooting for real problems to then help them with solutions. That's a good feeling.
Well, what I think my opinion on that transport harness is, hey, look, if we're fighting somebody, they're going in the wrap. Like that's
right.
what that is designed for. But more often than not, we're not fighting with somebody because they haven't gone there yet. But we deal with so many people that are super volatile and they're on the bubble, right? So we're just wrapping them just in case, or we're not putting enough restraint on them, and then it's going to lead to that fight. So we're just, so the beauty of that transport harness is that we get to take a lot of their options away. That if they decide, hey, I'm gonna start to act out, well, cool, we have an answer for that because we've already restrained it.
Right.
So
the one thing I hear routinely is that it's an opportunity reducer.
Yes.
So somebody may be on the bubble, or they may be looking for an opportunity, right? Yeah. How many times have we heard in, depositions or testimony from an offender who attacked an officer and they said, well, I did it because I thought I could win.
Right.
And so the transport harness, without inflicting pain, without being uncomfortable, it's
actually more comfortable than having chains on you. It turns out.
Absolutely is. It's an opportunity reducer. So when they're in the middle of the transport and there's an opportunity, well, they can't capitalize on it because they're so limited in what they can do. And so that's a really, really key, I guess, intersection to understand is the control without pain, the control without inhumanizing or dehumanizing somebody, and then the ability to get from point A to point B in a much safer way and have the result be no fights because the opportunities are gone.
Right.
And that's significant because the fight that never happens,
it's the best one,
is the best fight of all. Yeah. Right. So you're right on the money. If we didn't have the training in place that we do, we wouldn't have the opportunity to learn what the real problems are. So back to the relationship, we are here for the departments, for the personnel, and for the community. How do we make that impact?
Yeah. And then around the same time, you worked with agencies to develop the CART, and that CART is a game changer, in my opinion. Not just in the realm of trying to stay away from dehumanizing somebody, right? Because you wrap somebody up, their mobility is limited. That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
But keeping them on the floor, like there's some optics to that, right?
Yeah.
And not to mention just the logistics of having to move somebody in there. People are heavy, right? And having to pick them up and walk them down a corridor or something like that could be challenging. And so the CART tool that we have, I describe it crudely as a tactical hammock, right? It's like a mesh there with that you put somebody in it and there's a structure around it so that they can't really flip it or do anything like that.
Right.
But it's comfortable, more comfortable than concrete. And how did that come about?
Yeah. So in fact, it was a customer out of Washington who has older facility, long corridors, and they had recently a challenge with carrying somebody in the wrap. Officer hurt their back. And so they said, well, hey, we really need a CART. We really need something, what do you have? And I looked all around, couldn't find anything. So we went to a manufacturer who makes adult transport chairs for adult handicap folks out in nature. Great partner. And they made us a prototype, and it's been great. I call it a big baby stroller, which is, safe and comfortable, right? You want your child to be safe as you're moving them around. And that's what this is, right? Would I rather be flat on the ground? If you've been in a jail, it's not the cleanest, right? I don't want to be sitting on the floor.
We do our best.
Yes, exactly. So we keep them up off the ground. So that's a positive. 2, we're helping keep those personnel on the job by avoiding a back injury, right? We're also allowing that detainee to not constantly be touched, right?
Yeah.
If the folks that I just had to grapple with are now the same folks who are now picking me up. That may trigger me to get escalated again, but instead they sit in the cart. They're able to be pushed around to get to a safe area, place they could de-escalate. Maybe a mental health professional comes in and talks to them. That's been a really great tool from just the handling of somebody who's now been restrained in the wrap. And I'll take it a step further. I know many facilities who use that as a way just to move somebody who's in crisis, who's not being restrained, somebody who's got to go to medical, somebody who's in the back of the pod. They got to go through multi sets of doors. They're not fighting, but they're in crisis, and we got to get them out of the scene. That has worked very, very well. So had we not had that facility say, "Hey, here's our problem, here's our challenge. What do you got?" And have that relationship where they know they can trust and talk to us and be a solution partner, we wouldn't have the cart. So that there's a certainly a point of pride there to provide a tool, whether it's out on the field in a officer down situation, or whether it's used in a facility to move somebody around in a facility. Now, the cart is not a restraint. The cart is a tool to help, let somebody sit and then move them around. The wrap is the restraint. So it's a much easier tool to operate and solve back issues and transport and all those things. Just been great for facilities who have it. And, we're proud of that support for sure.
On top of that, we have a shield, we have security mitts, we have metal-free transport. We have all kinds of stuff on the website now. And all of them have been developed really with the mindset from users that say, hey, we have this issue. In fact, I won't name which one, but we recently had to help a branch of the military say, hey, we have a really gnarly situation. What do you got? Right. And we were able to help them, train them that week so that we can best help them for this situation. So super proud.
Great example. They called on a Tuesday. We had the equipment to them by Friday to handle, one of their service people who was having some mental crisis, and obviously they don't want to harm their person, but that person needed some care, but that person was also a self-harm person. So we shipped the security mitts to them so that person couldn't hurt themselves during this transport, as well as couldn't hurt others. And of course, being able to be transported in the wrap without pain or agitation just really fit the bill. So, those stories like that, those are the satisfying ones where you're making an impact, not only for that detainee or that arrestee or that confined person, but also the personnel who are trying to get that job done, which is very difficult.
So as we're wrapping this up, so to speak, I wanted to talk to you. Where do you see the future of the company going? Where do you see the future of restraints and law enforcement going, and the impact that we're trying to see through?
Right. Great question. And of course, I spend a lot of time working on the business, not in the business, and very blessed to have you leading the training team, and of course, Reese handling the support team. And I spent a lot of my time talking to customers on, users, what do they need? What are they challenged with? That kind of thing. And a continued step forward to investment and training of law enforcement corrections personnel, right? And when you've had some of the issues you've had on the news, regardless of what situation, there's always a point back to training, right? So I think that investment in training is going to help lead us into the future from a product enhancement, product evolution, a proper use of product, right? So that's our role, right? And as more people, unfortunately, are having emotional challenges, and there's more violent encounters, and there's less relenting or giving up in situations, if you will. Fights are more prevalent, right? Regardless of the source. So we have to continue to stay on the cutting edge of product development, stay leaning into the training component, and stay first and foremost in front of our customers to understand where their needs are driving. That's worked very well for us so far. If you don't advance and get better and move forward, you end up dying, right? And so my primary role and job is listen to our customers, hire the best dang people that I can, and continue to make an impact of safety on the wonderful men and women who do this job, which is extremely difficult to do. And for the community who, as you said earlier, a bad day should not be their last day, and adapt it just as time goes on. So fortunate to have been doing this for as long as we have. And then, of course, the wrap for 30 plus years, or excuse me, nearing 30 years. And it's only because we listen, we put training first, and we put people first. That's where I see it going.
I love that, man. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been good to pick your brain and kind of share the company that we're both very passionate about and that mission. I guess I'll say as a shameless plug, if you're an agency listening to this and you don't have the wrap or you don't have some of our products, reach out. We're always a resource for you. We do tests and evaluations all the time. And just keep looking at our website because we have some amazing stuff coming ahead of us, and we're excited to continue to serve. But thank you again so much for flying out here. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
My pleasure being on here, Tim. Thank you so very much.
All right.